Hey GenderqueerChat folks, happy Thursday. It is Thursday, August 13th, 2009, and welcome to wonderful Brookline, Massachusetts. I'm home visiting my family. Okay, so the topic this week is how do we label our relationships as gender non-conforming people? And at first, I was just going to make a very short video, and I was going to say, queer, period, and turn off the camera, but that's no fun. So, overall, yeah, I would label all of my relationships as queer, because regardless of who I'm with, I identify as a queer person, so my relationships feel a bit queer, which is great. I like that word. It works for me and it works for my relationships. But if I really analyze each one, it's kind of interesting. I was doing this last night to try to think about what to say. And okay, so say I was dating a girl who identified as queer herself or as lesbian. Then I would call that relationship queer. At the same time, I think that outsider people looking at our relationship might just call it a lesbian relationship. That would make me unhappy, but that's probably what people would choose to see, because then when they see me, they probably see a dyke, and that's fine, except that whole being a woman thing. I'd rather they just see an androgynous person, but whatever. I think if they see me holding hands down the street with a female-identified queer person, they would probably label the relationship as a lesbian relationship. And that's cool for them, but I would call it queer. Okay, option 2. If I were dating a boy, a cisgendered boy, then I would have to label that relationship as queer, because I wouldn't see myself being heterosexual, which is interesting because given my biology, that would be a heterosexual relationship. But given my mindset about my gender, it would make it queer. It would almost make it gay, because I would identify masculinely, and this person would identify masculinely if that was so the case. So, it might even be a gay relationship, more like a faggy thing, which is rad. But I think that if, again, the outsider perspective, I think if people looked at it, they'd probably be confused, and then maybe think we were friends, because I don't know if they would think it. What I would hope would not happen is if they would think, oh, it's a hetero relationship and that's a girl. That would make me uncomfortable. I'm open to dating all kinds of people, but I don't like the assumptions that would go along with that in terms of how I identify and how I think about myself. So that would blow. But if that were the case, I would certainly figure out a way to handle it so I could be with the person I liked. Okay, option 3. If I were dating a trans guy, a female to male person who had not transitioned, I think that people would probably see it either as the lesbian thing or the gay male thing, which would be cool. And then I would call it queer, of course. And then if this person were physically transitioning, I think that it might be perceived by strangers as maybe the straight thing again. I don't know. It's so confusing to try to put them all into categories and boxes and things. But it's interesting. For all that I do this categorizing, for all this categorizing that I do still like to reject all of it and just say, fuck it, and I want to just do what I do. But it's interesting to try to pick it apart and analyze it and be like, what does that look like, and what would people call that? To be like, what does that look like, and what would people call it? Okay, one sec. Okay. But, of course, I would call it queer. Alright. And maybe faggy, and that'd be rad. Number 4 option, if I were dating a trans girl, a male to female individual, I think prior to a physical transition, depending on passability, of course, and that goes for the female to male option as well. But prior to physical transition, I'm not sure what that would be viewed as. I don't know, because would people see, it depends how people read her and how they read me as well, but if she's identifying strongly as female, then she's trying a lot harder to pass than I am. So, I don't know, it depends on how they would read her, but let me think. If people read her as male, then it would be that hetero thing again. If people read her as female, it would be that lesbian thing again. That's actually a really interesting pattern. If I'm with someone who's male identified, people might see hetero. If I'm with someone who's female identified, I think I'd be labeled as lesbian. That's kind of fucked up. Because I don't really like either of those things. I don't identify with either of those things. I would like everything to be labeled as queer. So I guess number 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 option would be if I dated another genderqueer person. That would be rad. That would be amazing. And then we could just like fuck with gender all the time, and that would absolutely be called a queer relationship. And maybe if we were both passing, it could look like a faggy relationship, and that would be awesome. And I don't think it would get called the lesbian thing. No, that's not true. I bet it would be called the lesbian thing, depending if one or both of us decided to do any kind of physical transition. Then I think that would be questioned. That's really interesting. So there's definitely a difference between how I personally feel about these relationships and how I would label them and how the outside world sees them. Interesting. But if I had one word to choose, I'll give you a second to guess it. That's right, it would be queer. Okay, so that's all I have to say about the topic. And here's some random crap from my room, because I think that sounds hilarious. So hold on, one sec. I've never understood old phone numbers. 716-FI28757. How is that a phone number? But it's fun to play with. Glow-in-the-dark stars. So this is like my dad's ancient toy, where you have a marble and a maze, and you have to get the marble through the maze. So let's see if I remember. I used to be able to do this with my eyes closed. Oh, I haven't done this in years. That was awesome. Yes. And I will see you guys next week back in Berkeley. All right.